If you've ever been a home renter, whether a house or an apartment, you've probably experienced the sometimes harrowing process of maintenance, or perhaps lack thereof. Well, if you live in Columbia and resonate with that latter bit, you might be emboldened to learn about the City of Columbia's Office of Neighborhood Services, a department focused on addressing code enforcement issues, strengthening neighborhoods, and teaming those efforts with volunteers. I'm Rachael Norden, and in this episode of Thinking Out Loud, I talk with Leigh Kottwitz, Neighborhood Services Manager, and Adam Friesz, Code Enforcement Specialist at the City of Columbia, on the many and sometimes lesser-known resources offered to tenants of Columbia by Neighborhood Services, including the rental inspection program used for making sure homes are up to code, energy scoring, and how the city can assist in managing the relationship between tenants, landlords, and property managers.
The Office of Neighborhood Services really focuses on rentals in the city and also just code compliance. So, of course, the City of Columbia has lots of codes, lots of things for properties and property maintenance, rental, and we're there just to kind of make sure those are followed and just to be really a helpful place for tenants to go if they need some assistance, basically, with managing the relationship with their landlord, trying to get things fixed the correct way, and just being a good mediator in that relationship.
Yeah, I can see then prior to us starting this conversation, I had been telling them about how my HVAC went out over the weekend. So I can see where that kind of conversation goes straight into this kind of discussion. So if it was, a situation that was handled poorly or someone was having a really hard time getting the work done, they would reach out to you to kind of get code compliance done, to expedite that process or find out what should be done. Is that correct?
That's actually exactly right. Yeah. So, sometimes, sadly, there are instances where tenants, say, have something go wrong in their rental apartment, house, and the property manager or the owner might not just do the greatest job. Mm-hmm. And that's why we're here. We're here to make sure those things, those repairs meet code standard and are done in a pretty timely fashion.
Okay. So can you distinct for me then what the difference is between neighborhood services and specifically the rental inspection program? Are they the same thing or are they different?
Neighborhood Services enforces a variety of codes. So we have some inspectors that are focused on exterior issues on residential properties. So things that you might see from the street, grass, weeds, trash and debris, unlicensed cars. Many of those codes come out of the city's health code, Chapter 11 of City Ordinance. The other area that we work in, and Adam is one of our 4 inspectors that does rental inspections, we also enforce the rental unit conservation law, which is a city requirement to inspect all rental properties. And as part of that, we will handle tenant complaints like Adam has mentioned. So when you bundle all those things together, it's all about protecting our residential neighborhoods. And when we started back in 2010, that was the focus, was to put together different city staff who previously were in different parts of the city, bring those resources and staff together so that we can cooperate and again, help address problems in our residential areas.
I'm thinking most right now from the perspective of somebody who didn't know anything about your program or this service prior to this discussion. How do people find you? How do people get a hold of you?
Well, surprisingly, we actually get a lot of calls. So there are a big part of the population of Columbia that do know we exist. But there are a lot out there, especially the student population, that really have never heard of us. So we do, like I kind of said earlier, we do go to a lot of events. We do try to reach out to the community and kind of get that word of mouth going. The sad thing is, and the kind of thing that we have to fight against, is that a lot of our rental population changes year to year. So you will have new students come in, and we have to kind of reintroduce ourselves again. And maybe, by their junior year, they know that we exist, but then, they were graduated, maybe not staying around in Columbia. And so we kind of have to work again with the new freshman, sophomore class to kind of get them to know that we're there and an available resource. It's kind of like one of our goals is just to make sure that, that knowledge that we're there and available is out there.
So do you deal in exclusively complaints, or is there for lack of a better word, more positive things that you guys work with as well.
Well, usually complaints is the major motivation for us going out and looking at things. Now, every once in a while, we do say during our travels, we might see something on our own, and we'll go ahead and call those things out as well. But mainly, our job is really kind of complaint driven. So, when we do receive a complaint from a tenant or even a citizen, they don't actually have to be a tenant. We'll go out, we'll take a look, and we're always there to give that judgment on if something is really against code or not. So just because, we receive a complaint on a property doesn't necessarily mean that, a violation is going to be taking place. We're always going to go and actually physically see that. We're going to take a look, we'll take photos, we'll do a lot of research first, and then we'll just make that determination.
So is there any monetary transaction involved in this? Like coming from a renter perspective or even a property owner perspective, having their properties looked over, do you cost?
So rental property owners pay a fee to the city to have their property registered, and that includes the inspection. Right now, licenses are issued for 5 years. So at the beginning of the 5-year cycle, the owner or property manager will pay a fee to the city to have that property registered, will come inspect it, and issue a 5-year license. So there is some money that's transacted there. The fees that are collected fund the program. So if a tenant would call us with a complaint, we've already baked the cost of that service into the fees, if that makes sense. So there's not a cost for tenants, and we don't want to have a cost for tenants because we want them to feel comfortable calling us if there's an issue so that we can help resolve whatever problem that they might have.
Is it mandatory for property managers and property owners to be a part of this program, or is there a situation that's ever come up where a tenant calls you and their property isn't registered? Can they still be helped by this program?
They can still be helped, and there is a requirement that all rental property be in compliance with city code. What makes Columbia a little unique is that the rental unit conservation law that requires the inspections started way back in the 1970s. So as cities go that inspect rental properties, we've got a lot of history here, and that also has led to high cooperation. So we have a really high percentage of properties that are in compliance. There is some occasions when someone might call and we don't have a recent inspection on that property. If a property owner doesn't cooperate to get their property in compliance, they might end up in municipal court. But generally speaking, we have really great cooperation from rental property owners in Columbia.
That's great. Yeah, because you don't always hear stories like that from cities about cooperation with rental or property managers. So I wonder then, what kinds of things qualify or quantify as things that people can file complaints about?
Well, we get all sorts of complaints, mainly things like, let's say, doors not working correctly. Air conditioning, heating units not functioning or not working as they should. We get a lot of mold complaints. We get a lot of complaints on exterior parts of the building. For instance, like say someone's neighbor, they've got a lot of paint fading, siding falling down, maybe shingles, trees falling, falling down and going into their property. It's actually quite a big. It's a big array of different complaints we get, but there are codes for almost every single thing. It kind of goes into, I'm not even saying the words right, but it kind of mainly focuses on, just, how can I kind of say it? So if a property is meant to act a certain way, it's really what we're there for, is just to make sure that continues. So if the stove is supposed to work, it's supposed to work. And so when someone's renting that apartment, we want to make sure that is functioning just as it is. If a door is supposed to, close and open and lock, then that's what we're going to be holding it to. That's really the simplest way to kind of explain how codes work. It's really exactly what that function is meant to be, and just making sure that's sustained.
Yeah, because I'm thinking from the perspective of a renter, I'm like, what qualifies as a maintenance request and what qualifies as filing a complaint with neighborhood services or the rental inspection program. So I guess it's just kind of a balance game, just something you...
Yeah, we always want to focus on making sure that tenants know that the property manager or the owner is absolutely their first call, always. So that you have to let them know that there's an issue. Because just like anybody else, that owner or that property manager doesn't know that a problem may exist. So you want to give them adequate time to make that repair, that fix on their own. And I'm going to say 99% or higher, they get resolved that way. We really want to be brought into that conversation is when, say, like a door needs fixed and it's been, 2 to 3 weeks and they haven't heard anything from their property manager. No one's been by. Give us a call. We'd be more than happy to at least, give the landlord a call and say, hey, this is broken. Needs to be fixed. And sometimes a call, just a phone call or email from us kind of gets that spurred and gets that moving in the right direction a little quicker.
Yeah, I could see why. I mean, like I rent, as I've mentioned, so it's just even comforting to know you guys are there as an option. Because sometimes you can feel like if you're not getting a response out of your property manager, it can feel isolating and it can feel kind of like there's no one to lean on. But knowing that programs like this exist kind of gives that extra support that I think a lot of tenants and renters need. So moving into the next part of our conversation, I do want to touch a little bit on your energy score program and what kinds of things you have available around that. What is that? What is it?
Yeah. So, with the Office of Sustainability, we actually came up with what they call the Home Energy Score, which can be done at the exact same time that the rental inspection's done. This is still a voluntary process, so we are just there to kind of give information on how well that property is doing in terms of energy conservation. So what we do is we'll just take measurements of, the floor plan, your interior space, insulation in the attic, windows, the HVAC system. We take all those, we put it into a scoring system, and it gives them like a kind of like a calculated scale of how well that property is doing. Now, the older the property is, the less likely they are to really conserve energy well. But that's okay. We understand that. And that is actually even, that scale is based on the year that it was built. So we're never going to expect 100% energy efficiency from something, that was constructed in 1920. So that score will be then augmented to show that, hey, you're doing everything really you can do right now with the property you were given. So, and it is absolutely free. It just takes about, say, 30 to 45 minutes extra above and beyond the rental inspection. Fairly painless. And it's just some really good information to have, especially for those, we do get complaints a lot of times where, someone says, hey, my rent is very fair. But when in the wintertime, our utilities are just as much as my rent is. And that can be very financially difficult for a lot of tenants. And really that score just kind of helps show a couple of, ways that without a lot of money being put into it, that there can be quite a bit of change, especially with those costs.
So as far as the energy score program, is that something that like your other programs, the tenants can facilitate without their property manager, or is it something that's done in tandem?
Right now, we are doing those home energy scores as part of our regular rental inspections. A tenant could certainly call the city, and our utility department could work with them to do an energy score at the tenant's request. One of the reasons that we started doing this as part of our rental inspections is just to gather more information about rental properties. This has been a policy issue the city's been talking about for years because of what Adam touched on, that for some tenants, the utility expenses is just astronomical. But the tenant's paying for that. They're paying the utilities, so there's not much incentive for the property owner or manager to invest in improving the property. So it's been a struggle, and we just want to gather more information to find out what is the status of our rental property in Columbia, to just get more information, because I know that rental property owners and managers get pretty nervous when we start talking about requirements and some kind of minimum energy efficiency. And we want to just gather more information. So as we continue this discussion, that we know here is what we've learned about rental properties in the city of Columbia, so that we can continue talking about how we can make them more efficient. The only other thought related to energy efficiency is for tenants that it's important to consider the cost of utilities when you decide where you're going to live. Because once you get in the house, get where you're going, and then you have this huge utility bill, then it's really difficult to make a change. So that's a best practice, is that as people are looking for housing, is to take a little time, ask to see the past utility bills, ask about what the utility bills are going to be, about the energy efficiency of that property. That can definitely pay off in the end.
That was Leigh Kottwitz and Adam Friesz with the City of Columbia's Office of Neighborhood Services. There was a lot of great info in this episode, so if you or someone you know is in need of some extra support from the city to solve a rental issue, make sure to 1. Bookmark this episode, and 2. Visit the Office of Neighborhood Services website at como.gov/neighborhood-services, or reach out to them by phone at 874-CITY or email neighborhood@como.gov. I'm Rachael Norden, and you've been listening to Thinking Out Loud from KBIA 91.3 FM.